So I want to talk about the idea of being in the present, being in the moment, being in the now. And to understand that, we have to understand a little bit how do we measure time? What's the definition of time? And if time is time absolute? Is time real? Is time just perception? Now there's a famous medrash that says that when the Torah says the word v'ata and now, so the word v'ata refers to tshuva. Ein v'ata elo tshuva. But v'ata now means tshuva. So tshuva is about now. What does it mean to be now? So most times, the way people are is that they're either in their past, caught up in their past, which is their memories of things that happened in the past, or their mind is floating into the future, which is their imagination. And a lot of people, because they're not focusing on the present. So if you're living in the past, a lot of times people live with guilt, or with regrets, or with the idea that if only I did this, then my life would be this. And if only I said this, or went here, or met this person, my life would be different now. And because there's nothing really to do in the present, so all that does is just makes you feel bad about yourself and for the decisions that you made in the past. Now, the truth is, the idea of if only, the Hasidic masters say that to say if only is kfira, is heresy. Because if only means that from the perspective of the present, it was not meant to be. Something was done in the past. You have done something in the past, and you've done something because of your own free choice. So when you did it, you had the free choice to do it or not to do it. But once you created the free choice, and you're ready in the effects of that choice, which is in the present, it's exactly the way it's meant to be. From the perspective of the present, everything that happened in the past was exactly the way it was meant to be. How do we know that it was meant to be? Because it happened. And everything is divinely orchestrated. So when we're living in the present moment, which we'll understand what that means to live in the present moment, which is like the infinite potential of the present moment, the pure context of the present moment, the I and the emptiness of the present moment, then a person has the possibility to create a choice and make a particular choice how they're going to live and what's going to be the choices. But once you made a choice and it becomes part of the fabric of your narrative and part of the fabric of the narrative of creation, then it's exactly the way it was meant to be. And if you say if only, that's already a level of heresy, which is not believing that it was meant to be. So on one hand, it's not about the past. On the other hand, also thinking about the future, because people think about the future, what happens? Most times, when the mind is unoccupied and has nothing to do with itself, what it does is basically it creates scenarios of what's going to happen in the future. Usually not positive scenarios. Certain things are going to happen to you. You're going to lose your job. You're going to end the relationship. This is going to happen. The other thing's going to happen. And then you start living with fear. And what's going to happen when this happens? But all this is just a fabrication of your imagination. Nothing actually ever happened yet. So you create all these narratives in your mind of what's going to happen. And because you have no power to change what's going to happen, because it's something that you think that this is something going to happen that's beyond my control, so you live with fear. Now, in Hebrew, there are actually two words for fear. One is yira, and one is pachad. So yira and pachad are most times they're interchangeable. But yira comes from the word to see, but we'll use it just as the word fear. And pachad we'll say is also fair, but we'll try to understand the difference between these two levels between Yira and Pachad. In general, Yira is connected with the name Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yira is Hashem. So Yira is connected with the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. We're going to talk about a little bit of that name, that very important name of God. And Pachad is connected with Elokim. So a lot of times in Scripture, in Tanakh, when the Torah wants to say Pachad, the person has Pachad, it says Pachad Elokim. Ein Pachad Elokim negative. If a person doesn't have Pachad, Elokim. So Pachad is connected with Elokim, and Yira is connected with Hashem. And these are two divine names, which we'll get into a little bit in deeper. But the basic difference between the structure of these two names is that Hashem, which is the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, is connected with infinity. I will explain how that works. And Elokim is connected with the natural. Bereshis bar Elokim. When the Torah wants to describe creation of the natural world, it talks about the creation through the name of Elokim. The difference between Elokim and Hashem is infinity. Let's just make it very simple. One is transcendence, and one is immanence. Pachad is connected with Elokim because Pachad is an imminent danger. Yira is the fantasy of danger. A person has Yira. A person has fear. So a person has fear, let's say a person has a good job, or is in a good relationship, or is healthy. And there are people that are not healthy, don't have jobs, and not in good relationships. So what does Yira do? Fear says, even though I have this in my life, this may happen to me, and because of that, you paint the worst possible scenario. This is going to happen. This is exactly the trajectory. I'm going to lose my job, therefore I'm going to lose my relationships, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to lose that. Next thing I know, I'm on the street. And I lose my health because of that. And you have all this crazy fantasy that goes on. This is all not based on any logic. And it's completely something that's not present. It's not a reality in the present. It's only a reality in the potential future which you just created for yourself. And besides the fact that it's just in the future, you have actually nothing to do with it. You cannot control it. What is Pachad? Pachad is, if a person's walking down the street, this is obviously not going to happen to you, and they encounter a wild beast, a lion, or you're in the jungle, and you're faced with a lion, and the lion could devour you, and you have Pachad of the lion. So what do you do when you have Pachad? You run away. Or if you see a fire, and it's coming towards you, you run, or you throw some water at it. Or if you see an ocean, and you don't know how to swim, you don't jump in. So Pachad is the way that we protect ourselves from something that's in an immediate danger. It's actually present. It's in the now. It's in the present moment. And the Pachad, which we call the fear, makes sure that you don't do this thing. You don't jump into the water. You don't jump into the fire. You don't stand in front of a lion. That's Pachad. Yira is the world of your thoughts. Pachad is in Hebrew, Pachad comes from the word pochad. Here, it's sharp, which means now there's a present danger. There's something present, and there's something that you can do about it in this present moment. And Yira is connected with something that's for the future, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So when you think about, this a little bit tie this into the idea of the shofar, the blowing of the shofar. What's the idea of blowing of the shofar? So if you look through in the Torah itself, where it talks about the blowing of the shofar, the Torah has many different reasons or ways that the shofar is blown for different purposes. For example, there's a purpose of blowing the shofar to mark an ending of something. So it says, when they blew the shofar, we knew we can go up onto Mount Sinai. Or sometimes the shofar, b'chatzos v'kol shofar, with the sound of the shofar and the chatzosers, they would gather the people. Shofar, the Torah says, im yitaka shofar b'ir v'lam lo yichradu. Sometimes the sound of the shofar is to create fear and panic that something's about to happen. But the root of all the sounds of the shofar is very visceral and very simple. The sound of the shofar is a sound of a person that's becoming centered. If someone hurts themselves, I'm not suggesting that it happens to you, but if someone hurts themselves, the first reaction that you have when a person says, ow, or whatever they say, whatever the reaction is, you fall down the steps, God forbid. The first reaction that you have, you're completely present in the pain that you just experienced. The second reaction you have is the evaluation of why you're in pain, or what just happened to me, or I just cut my hand, right? That's already your mind understanding what's happening. Your mind is already separating yourself from the actual pain. But the most the person could be present, it could be pain and it could be pleasure. But these are the extremes. The most the person is actually present in their body is either when they experience extreme pain or extreme pleasure. When there's no you that's observing yourself experiencing the pain or experiencing the pleasure. You're completely centered and one with the pain that you're experiencing or the pleasure. So the sound of the sound of the shofar is really the sound of a person that's becoming centered and present. It's a person saying, ow, it hurts, and then they're going to evaluate why it hurts. And obviously the hurting is on a spiritual level. So something is troubling you. Spiritually, there's no progress, there's no movement. And the sound of the shofar is you yourself blowing out this one sound that you're completely centered, present in this pain. Because you're present in this pain, now a lot of things can happen. You're centered, you're aware, you're conscious, you become aware of yourself. All these things happen because you're centered. And that's why if you look through some of the writings of the Ari, or Isaac Lurie, the Arizal, he talks about the shofar as a tikkun habris. That the shofar creates a tikkun, a rectification for the bris, which is the attribute of Yesod. The physical expression of the human being is Yesod. The tikkun habris it can be sexual, but it also can mean any type of relationship, because any relationship that a person has is they're connecting their Yesod, which is their foundation, or their extremities, their external, in a connection with somebody outside themselves. So the person themselves is the attribute of Yesod, which is a giving attribute, which is a masculine attribute, and the person that's receiving this giving is Malchus, which is the receiver. So every expression is Yesod. Any I don't know if this is clear, but every interaction that we have in the world is our Yesod interacting with the Malchus. If I am talking to you, so I'm the Yesod, you're the Malchus. If you're talking to me, you're the Yesod, I'm the Malchus. If I'm eating food, I'm the Yesod, and the food is Malchus. Right? So the Yesod is me expressing myself or giving myself out. It could be the words that I'm using, or the facial expressions that I'm having, or the hand motions that I'm doing. Any expression that I'm giving myself outwards is my Yesod. The thing that's receiving it is the Malchus, which is the feminine quality. And that's why there's a unity between the masculine and feminine in every interaction. What is the tikkun ha-Yesod? What is the rectification of Yesod? The rectification of Yesod is that we should be fully present in every expression that we are giving. Because when a person is expressing, let's say, speaking to somebody, saying good morning to somebody, but their mind is focusing on something else, and their heart is feeling something else, and they have no connection with this person, so they're physically verbalizing the words good morning, but there's no alignment of their Yesod, because the mind's here, the heart's here, and the body's there. What is a proper Yesod when a person is fully present in everything that they're doing? So when you're saying good morning to somebody, you feel that you should say good morning, your mind is present that you're saying good morning, and you're fully present with the other person. That's a tikkun for Yesod. You're following? So what is the sound of the shofar which creates the tikkun, the great rectification of all the Yesod throughout the entire year? It's when we're fully present. And that's the idea of being in the present moment. Not that our mind is wondering about the past, or not that it's thinking about the past. If I should have done this, and if I would have done that, and if this would have happened, and that would have happened. And not about the future. But not about the future that you have no control over. And we'll have to understand this, because when we say that you want to be in the moment, and we say that va'ata, the idea of now, means to be in the present moment, there's a difference between thinking about the present moment as being in the moment or for the moment. And these things are very loosely interchanged. When you think about being for the moment means that you're just present in the moment without the effects of the past and without the consequence of what this moment will bring into the future. That's not necessarily a positive thing. A person is going to say, okay, I have this huge, let's say that we use a mundane example. I have this huge cake in front of me, and I really love sweets. So I'm just going to be for the moment. I'm going to eat the entire cake. It's possible that you may enjoy it, but the consequence of you eating the entire pie is that you're going to have a tremendous stomachache in a few moments, or maybe even throw up. So by being just saying, I just want to be in the moment, is not necessarily a positive thing. You just want to indulge presently. Whatever I am doing, I want to be fully present, and I don't want to think about the consequences of the future. That's not necessarily a positive thing. Because when we're trying to say that a person should be in the moment, there's going to be a difference between being in the moment and being for the moment. When a person is being for the moment, they're just being for the moment that is present right now, without an awareness of how you got to this point and what's going to come forward from this point. And being in the moment is going to be being in a certain dimension of time, which is now, but it includes also the past and the future. And to understand what this is, we have to work through a little bit with the nature of time. So I just want to, is this a little bit clear what we're trying to say? Which is that the idea is that we're trying to be in a certain consciousness and a certain awareness in the present, and be fully present in this moment without actually thinking too much about the past and the effects of the future, and yet taking that also into consideration. So it's not for the moment, in the moment. And how does that work? So to do this, we have to think a little bit about the nature of time itself. So how do we define time? The way we simply define time is that time is a composite of 3 dimensions, which we'll say is a past, a present, and a future. Now, in Hebrew, the word for time is zman. Zman, Zayin, Mem, and a final nun. According to the Kabbalistic teachings, the word zman in numeric value is 97. 97 is the numeric value of the name of Shem Ma, which is 45, and Shem Ban, which is 52. Now, we're not going to do this in great detail, but just to give you a very quick overview of what this is. The name Yud Ke Vav Ke, the Yud, the He, and the Vav and the He, in their regular numeric value, so Yud is 10, He is 5, Vav is 6, and He is 5, so it's 26. So Yud Ke Vav Ke is 26. That's the basic numeric value. But the Yud He Vav He, Yud He and the Vav and the He, the filling letters, which means how do you spell the letter Yud? So Yud, if you have to spell the letter Yud, not write the letter Yud, you want to spell it out, you would spell it with a Yud and a Vav and a Dalet. So in numeric value, Yud, Vav, and Dalet is actually 20. So Yud is 10, Vav is 6, and Dalet is 4. Okay, so that Yud will always be 20. The He, Vav, He, which are the final 3 letters, can be spelled in different ways. You can spell He, for example, as Hey Hey, which is 2 Heys. You can spell Hey as Hey Aleph, or you can spell Hey as Hey Yud. And with the Vav, you can spell Vav Aleph Vav, or just Vav Vav. Now, what happens when you do these different formulations of the Yud Ke Vav Ke, the Yud Vav Dalet always remains the same. That's 20. But the Hey Vav Yud, Hey Vav and Hey, you can spell in these 3 formations. Either spell Hey Yud, Hey Aleph, or Hey Hey. And accordingly, you're going to get the numeric value either 72, or 63, or 45, or 52. And there's a reason why 45 comes before 52, even though 52 comes before 45. If you want to know this very quickly, it's because the total number always has to be 9, because 9 is the number of truth, emes. in Hebrew, Aleph Mem Taf is 9. And 9 is replicated always into 9. So 2 times 9 is 18. 18 is 8 and 1, which is 9. And 3 times 9 is, right? So it's always going to have the number 9. So 9 is the number of truth. So 72 is 7 and 2 is 9. 63, 6 and 3 is 9. Right? 45 is 4 and 5 is 9. 52 is not 9. But if you spell the word ban, which is Bay's final nun, right? So nun is normally 5, which is 50, right? But the final nun is actually 700. So it's 7. So that's why you go ban, which is 7 and 2, also equals 9. Okay, that's just why you want to get to that number, always the number 9. The basic idea, not to get too complicated, is that the last two names of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the filling of these 4 letters, is the name Ma and the name Ban. The name Ma and Ban is another way of phrasing, which we said before, which is Yesod Malchus. That Ma and Ban is the masculine and feminine lower dynamic of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So Ma and Ban, the name Ma and Ban, which is connected with Zman, which is time, is connected to the rhythm of creation the way we know it. Let's try to understand this. There's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav and the Hey. Now if you take these 4 letters, you can spell the word Haya, Hey Yud Hey. You can, right? You have Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. If you take these 4 letters, you can have a Yud Hey, Hey Yud, a Hey, which is Haya, Hey Yud Hey. You have the word Hove, which is present. Haya means that it was. Hove means that is. And Yiya is Yud Hey, is that it will be. It was, it is, and it will be. So the 4 letters of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei spell something that reference to a past, it was. Present, Hove, which is it is. And Yiya, it will be, which is future. So the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the name of the Yud and the Hey and the Vav Hey represents a dimension which is infinite beyond time. Because the way we're going to measure time is there's a present, and there's a past, and there's a future. Correct? Now we're living in the present. The past doesn't exist anymore. The future is yet to come. So the only moment that exists is this present moment. The moment we actually become aware that the present moment exists, it's already in the past and doesn't exist anymore. But the concept of time, the way we understand time, the way we're going to define time from, let's just say, from a colloquial, basic way, the way we interact in time. We say, this happened yesterday, this is happening today, this will happen tomorrow. Dimensions of time, the past, the present, and the future are somewhat related, but not necessarily, because we can say, I want to live now in the present, and I don't want to think about the past, and I don't want to think about the future. So you can cut yourself off from that time. Also, if you don't have good memory, and let's say something happened to you 5 years ago, or let's say something happened to you yesterday, and you don't remember it, so you're cut off from that past, right? So in the present moment, the past doesn't exist, neither does the future. So one dimension of time is that every single moment of time is separate units from each other. There's a flow of time from a past to a present into a future. And in every single moment of that time, each unit is independent from its past and its future. That's one way to measure time. And I would say that's the way most people measure time. Because if a person doesn't remember them, let's say consciously, a person doesn't remember their full day yesterday, so their yesterday exists in some ethereal place, but it doesn't exist in their consciousness. So in their consciousness, they're cut off from their yesterday. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not affected by the yesterday, but they're not conscious of their yesterday. And they're not conscious of their tomorrow if they're not thinking about their tomorrow. So there's one dimension of time where time, let's phrase it a little bit different, where time is very real. There's a past, there's a present, there's a future. They're linked together, but each one has a separate dimension. That's one definition of time. That's the lower dimension of Zman. The lower dimension of Zman is the way most people interact with time. Today I'm here, yesterday is gone, tomorrow is yet to come. I have a little bit of effect from my yesterday, I remember some of the things, I anticipate some things from my future, but essentially every single unit of time is separate from each other. Then there's the dimension of time, which is beyond past, present, and future. Beyond past, present, and future means something that says that the past is not a real existence. The future is not a real existence. The present moment actually doesn't really exist also, because I can never really grasp the present moment. I can only grasp the we're going to use these words a little later, but the yesh of this present moment, which is the content of the present moment. If I want to, okay, let's try to phrase this more simply. I say I want to be very, very present right now in this present moment. Okay, so what am I going to do to be very present? What am I going to do? I'm going to do what? I'm going to think something. What am I going to do? I want to be very, very present right now. I'm going to feel something. I'm going to think something. I'm going to touch something. I'm going to say something. What am I going to do? If I want to be present, this is what I want. What?
Bring it.
What? Let go of what? So wait a second. So you're saying, okay, so if I really want to be in this present moment, I cannot actually do anything in the present moment. Because the moment I do something in the present moment, right, then I'm connected with a particular thing in the present moment, which is the form of the present moment. The form of the present moment is not the present moment. Let's try to imagine this in terms of, let's say there's a frame, we'll call it a context, and then there's the picture in the frame, which is the content. The context of this present moment has no form, or has all form. The moment I attach myself to a particular form, I'm actually not in the present moment. I'm in the thought of the present moment, and in the action of the present moment. Right? So the only way to be in the present moment is to let go of all the content of the present moment, and therefore, what are you back to? You're back to actually nothing. You're not. You're into something that's formless and has no content, which is another word for saying ayin, right? Ayin means nothingness. So in the present moment, if you want to really get to the ultimate of being in the present moment, it's actually nothing. The present moment is nothingness that has no form. This is another way of saying Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? What is the Yud Kei Vav Kei? The Yud Kei Vav Kei is the four-letter name of Hashem. The Yud, the Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, which spells Haya, Hoive, V'yeh, which is past, present, and future, which means something that includes past, present, and future can be only something that's beyond past, present, and future. Now the paradox becomes, okay, so where is that time? Okay, so it's beyond time. And how do I tap into it if it's beyond time? And here's where it gets a little bit paradoxical, but we'll have to get to this. How do we get in touch with this? You're following? How do we get in touch with this Yud Kei Vav Kei that's beyond time? The only place to get in touch with this Yud Kei Vav Kei is through, let's read what the words say. Yud Kei Vav Kei is Yud, Hey, and a Vav and a Hey. So let's say that the word actually spells Yud / Hoive. Hoive, we said, is present, right, which is now. Haya is past. Yeh is future. Hoive is present. If I take the Yud Kei Vav Kei and write them out, so I have the Yud, then the Hey, and then the Vav and the Hey. The final three letters spell the word Hoive, which is present. What does the Yud do to a word? Whenever a Yud is placed before a word, it makes the word a continuous action. Let's say I want to say Asa. Asa means someone did something. And Kain Yasa, a person is doing something. So the Yud takes a Hebrew word and renders it a continuous action. So Yud, Kacha Yasa Iyav. So when you say Yud Hoive, it means the ever unfolding present. That's what it means. The ever unfolding continuous presence. Present. So what is the name of Hashem? What is the Yud Kei Vav Kei? The Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the four-letter name of Hashem, we have three ways of thinking about this, right? One way of thinking about it is that the Yud Kei Vav Kei is connected to the units of Zman, which is time, which we said is the Yud Kei Vav Kei of the Shem Ma and the Shem Ban, the name, the 45 and the 52, which is 97, which is the same numeric value as time, which is the flow of natural time, past, present, and future. That's one dimension. The other dimension of Yud Kei Vav Kei is that it's beyond time. And the deepest dimension of Yud Kei Vav Kei is that it's the beyond time that's manifest in the immediacy of the present. The Yud, that is Hoiva, that is continuously present. Now this is very important, because when we're thinking about connecting with time and being present in the moment, so we don't get stuck in a narrative of the past and live with regret and live with guilt and live with only if this would happen and that would happen, or live with this imagination and with this fear of what will happen and how it's going to happen, things are going to unfold, and because of that you have all this fear. So where are you supposed to live? You're supposed to live in this present moment that's presented to you right now. How are you supposed to live in this present moment that is presented to you right now? You're supposed to live it on all these three levels. We're going to navigate through these three systems, because we're going to see that it's not an either or. You can't be an either or place. You can't say, I just want to be here or I just want to be there. I'll give you a very simple example, then we'll get to a little bit deeper understanding. If a person says, I'm just going to be in this present moment, because the present moment is a brand new moment. Every moment is new, unrelated to a past, unrelated to a future. It's infinite being expressed in the present moment. The Yud, the infinity is being expressed, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, in this present infinite moment that has no form. Right? So who am I right this present moment? I'm a brand new me right this moment, which is true on many levels. But if this is 100% a true statement and there's no other true statement, therefore I don't take responsibility for something I did in the past. Let's say, for example, I'm not going to do this, but let's say I slapped you across the face for some reason. Or I stepped on your toes. Or it was unintentional. Let's say I stepped on your toes. And then you say, why did you do that? What do you mean? I didn't do it. That was not me. It's a new me right now. And on one level, it's true. But you're still feeling the pain, and I still have to apologize for it. So taking responsibility demands that we expand time into the past. Taking the ability to transform ourselves in every moment demands that we believe every moment is a brand new moment. Someone did something yesterday. Okay, so the laws of inertia, you put something into motion. You did something negative yesterday. The past affects the present, which affects the future. Now you're in the present moment. You're an effect of the actions that you've done in the past. You want to free yourself from those actions because you want to start new. You want to say, what I've done in the past was me in my past. Today I'm a new me, and therefore I want to recreate myself at this present moment. Every moment is a brand new moment. And it's empty of all form, and therefore has the possibility of everything. So I want to create myself from new right this present moment. And you are being created from new every moment. Like we said, you're being created every single moment anew. So I want to create myself anew right this present moment. Therefore, if I want to create myself anew at this present moment, then why should I take responsibility for something I did in the past? I did something in the past. I'm presently a new person, so why should I care about something that happened in my past? You're following? And if you just take responsibility for the past, which is another way of living, I'm going to take full responsibility for things that I've done in the past. Okay, that means you're the effect of your past. If you're in the effect of the past, then you can't project a new future, because you're just living out the effects of the past. So here we have to navigate between these two systems. We're going to introduce two more words just to complicate it a little bit more. Creation occurs through a process which is called yesh and ayin. I think some of the stuff we have over here written down, but it occurs through a process through yesh and ayin. Ayin is the emptiness of form that doesn't have yet actually a narrative. It's the potential. Yesh is the manifestation, the form. Every moment arises and is created, which is another word to say ex nihilo, something from a nothing. Every moment that arises is a yesh that's being created from the ayin. Yesh is existence, creation, the way it is. Ayin is the potential that gives rise to the creation at every moment. There are three, we see this in terms of when a person breathes. A person, you take an inhale, you take an exhale, and then there's a retention between the inhale and the exhale. So creation occurs through a process where Vayomer Hashem Yar, Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. So creation occurs through a process of speech. But the deeper roots of speech is wind, which we've spoken about many times. The deeper root of wind is breath. So when you breathe, when you speak, you're actually, it rises up as breath, then becomes wind, and then becomes words in the mouth, and then it's projected outward. And there are the 4 stages, which correspond to the 4 stages of creation. So the creation occurs when God says, let there be light. Originally there's a thought to create, which gives rise to a breath, which gives rise to a wind, which then becomes particular in let there be light. So the divine flow of creation can be seen as breath. In breath, there's an inhale and there's an exhale. When you're exhaling, when the Creator is exhaling, that's creating. It's like filling up, some Kabbalists speak about this in terms of like filling a balloon with air. So you're filling, the world is being filled with air, with oxygen, with life force. That's the shefa, that's the divine flow. That's the chesed moment. But the flow that comes from the one, and then is flowing outwards to create multiplicity and duality, the flow that's coming from the one is moving in 2 directions. It's creating, which is a chesed flow, the giving flow, an exhale, and every other moment there's a divine inhale, which is gevura, which is restriction. Just like when you inhale and exhale, where it's actually it's the opposite image. Because for us, inhaling is existing and exhaling is expiring. Because we're inhaling the divine exhale and we're exhaling the divine inhale. So the divine exhale is the creation, the giving, and the divine inhale is the retraction, the tzimtzum, the contraction. You're following this analogy? So the inhale and exhale of the movement of creation is a chesed, giving, and the gevura is restricting. The chesed and gevura movement, which is inhale and exhale, gives the potential of free choice. Bless you. Gives a person the potential of free choice, because when you're creating, when the divine is creating, that's the power to give and create. So a person connects with the divine flow of giving, they're sustaining, they're giving life, they're supporting life. But just like there's a movement outwards, there's a movement inward. And that gives the potential for evil in this world. For someone to do something that's the opposite of life-giving or life-affirming. For taking life. Because the ability of giving and creating, there's also the ability of retracting and destroying. Because every moment, if every moment is being created anew, every other moment is being destroyed. This is on a metaphysical level, but there's a movement back and forth of creation and destruction, of chesed and gvura. You're following this movement, and it's going in and out. The chesed and gvura movement is the flow of time of the yesh, of existence. It's being created and it's being destroyed. But what's being created, what's being destroyed? The form. Between every inhale and exhale, there's a moment of retention. Where a person, let's say when you're inhaling and exhale, there's a place in between the inhale and the exhale. Between the inhale and the exhale, there's a retention. Between the exhale and the inhale, there's a retention. That point is ayin. That's the potential. The potential to inhale, the potential to exhale. So creation is occurring yesh, which is the flow of creation, creating, sustaining, retracting, and in between every moment is the ayin. The ayin is the absence of all form. It's the moment of potential before It is and before it's not. Before it's being created or before it's being destroyed. In our own life, we have all these same concepts within our own life. There's a part of us that's a continuation of our yesh. Who we are today is the effects of our yesterday. Who will be tomorrow will be the effect of the choices that we make in today. That's one level of our reality. That's a very true reality to ourselves. And that's our yesh. That's our yesh. What is our yesh, our existence? Is that I make choices today, that has an effect on my tomorrow. I'm taking responsibility for things that I've done in my past. It's a healthy way to live also, because I take responsibility and I'm cautious about my future. When it becomes something that's detrimental for my own personal life is when I stop living in the present and I'm only living in the past and only living in the future. I'm only thinking about the things that I should have done and only thinking about the things that are going to happen to me. But I'm not thinking about my present moment. So living in the present moment, when you're thinking about the present moment, like we said with pachad, when there's a type of fear, when it's an immediate danger, I mean, you're making choices today so you're going to have a better future, that's a healthy thing. That's functioning from a place of my yesh. I'm fully present in the form, in the narrative, in the story of my life in this present moment, with a recognition that my past affected who I am in the present, and the recognition that my present will affect my future. And therefore I'm making choices today that are responsible and taking accountability for things that I've done in the past, and responsible choices that are going to affect my future. That's one dimension of reality. The problem with this dimension of reality is that we get stuck there. We get so pulled down into that world of yesh, where time is real, that we forget that there's a part of us, and part of the constitution of creation, which is the Haviyah, which comes from the name of Hashem, the creation, the be's creation. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the ultimate beer who creates all beingness. And the beingness has Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is Haya, Haya V'Yiyah, past, present, and future, which is one very strong dimension. But it also has a dimension which is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is beyond past, present, and future. And it also has a dimension where all the past, present, and future is right in the present moment. Let's try to understand this a little bit more clear. If you look at the on your page, we'll just go through some of the things and then we'll talk about this a little bit. If you see where it says the Kabbalah of time, so time is 97, which is Mamban. 52 and 45, which together is 97, which is Man. That's the Yesh. That's the movement of time, which is Tnua, movement. There's a past, there's a present, there's a future, and time is very real. So who am I at the present moment? I'm in the effects of my past. My present will impregnate my future. Skip a little forward, like towards the bottom of the page, where it says the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. So Haya is that it was, Haiva that it is, and Yeh that will be, that past, present, and future, which is beyond and includes all time. So beyond time is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, because it's past, present, and future. But the essential name can be read as Yud Haiva, the Yud in the Haiva, the eternal now. Yud before the word transform the world in continuous act, which is the eternal now. Right, which we spoke about, right? The eternal now, which is the presence of infinity, which is present right this moment. Where is infinity expressed? Where is the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is beyond time, the ayin? Yesh is time, which past, present, and future. Everything is separate, and everything is an independent unit. Right? That's Yesh. Ayin is beyond time. Right? So the Yesh is the inhale and the exhale. The ayin is the retention between the inhale and the exhale. That's infinity. So these are not concepts in abstract concepts. These are concepts within our own consciousness. So there's a level of consciousness, a level of reality where time is very real, past, present, and future. There's a level of reality, which even scientifically speaking, is there is no past, present, and future, and time is just relative, which means that it's beyond time, right? That's another level of time. Then there's a third dimension of time where where is infinity that's beyond time expressed? If we want to connect with something that's infinite beyond time, where do we connect with infinity that's beyond time? In this present moment. The only moment where infinity is expressed is in this present moment. In which dimension of this present moment? In the ayin dimension of the present moment. When I'm in this present moment and I'm thinking a thought, I'm in the yesh of this present moment. If I'm right now having a conversation with you and thinking about what I'm saying, which hopefully I am doing, and this is a yesh of this present moment, so what I'm thinking about now is a cumulative of the things that I thought about in the past. So there's a narrative from the past into the present. That's what I'm talking to you. You're taking this information, that you're going to share it in the future. That's my connection to my yesh. If I'm feeling now, let's say I have a particular feeling to someone. If I'm feeling a certain thing, that's because there's a certain narrative of my reality that I'm connected with. Where did that narrative, where did that story come from? From my past, my memory. And I'm living my memory in the present moment, so therefore I'm connected with that. Therefore I'm having feeling. That's not the internal present moment. It's the form of the present moment. It's the yesh of the present moment. What is the ultimate, where is infinity, the infinite Yud-Kei Vav-Kei expressed in this present moment, not in the form of the present moment, but in the potential of the present moment, which we said, for example, is the idea of the retention between the inhale and the exhale. What is the formlessness or the emptiness in the present moment when you let go of all the narratives that you are in the present moment? I'm not in my thoughts, I'm not in my feelings, I'm just present. How do you get there? How do you get to be just in the present moment, in the infinity, in the infinite potential of this present moment? And because you're in that infinite potential of the present moment, just because yesterday you were somebody, and this is your narrative, doesn't mean that you're going to be this person tomorrow. How do you connect with that reality that's beyond time in this present moment? Because you can only connect within the present moment because the yud is in the haiva, the infinity is in the present. Now this is complicated. I can't tell you there's an easy solution how to do this, but a simple way to do this is, for example, if you're just sitting still for a few moments and just becoming aware of the sensation of your fingers, for example. This is just, it's random, but it could be anything. So gently become aware of your sensations of your finger, what's the tingle in your fingers without touching anything. Just your fingers are loose and you become aware of the sensation in your fingers. What does that do? It basically, instead of being in your headspace, which is the place where you usually are, and I'm thinking about what's going on, or I'm feeling what's going on. A feeling is another type of intelligence. I'm thinking my life. I'm analyzing my life. I'm giving it form. I'm giving it texture. I'm evaluating. Saying this thing is good. This thing is bad. This thing. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. You're constantly creating this narrative. You're just being present in this moment. You're anchoring your presence into the present moment, not anchoring your brain or your mind into the present moment, because your mind is also connected to the narrative. Sometimes it's awareness. Sometimes we're aware that it happened, that we were present after we were present. It always, I shouldn't say sometimes, it always happens that way. You become aware that you were present fully in the formlessness of the I not there. We have this example of Jacob, in the Torah, where Yaakov is Vayifka b'makom. He encounters this space, b'makom, this place, and he lies down, and then he has a dream, and he says, "Achin yesh Elokim b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadayti." Indeed, the divine is in this place, and I was not aware. So he becomes aware in the morning, but Vayifika B'Makom becomes a very powerful image. He encounters Makom. What is Makom? Makom means space or place. He encounters the place. What's the place? How do you encounter the place? And what is the place? How do you encounter the place? And where is that place that he encounters? So the sages, why do we say encounter? He goes to the Har Moriah. He goes to like the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But what's the depth of that? That the depth of that is that space, you say that's the space where all space emanates from. That's the space where all space. If space is a dimension, so there has to be the point of space. I mean, this is on a metaphysical level. The point of all space, and then space emerges from that space. So when he encounters B'Makom, he encounters the essential space. In essence, the essential space is every space. The depth of every space. Are you following what I'm trying to say? If this is the center of the space, and it flows and becomes this entire space, so the depth of any single space is really that root, right? If everything comes from there. So Vayifka B'Makom, he encounters the essence of space. B'Makom, in numeric value, is also 186. Makom is 186. 186 is actually Yud Ke Vav Ke squared. So if you take Yud, which is 10, and you do 10 times 10 is 100. Hey is 5, so 5 times 5 is 25. Vav is 6, 6 times 6 is 36. And the final Hey is 5 is another 25. So you have 186. But Makom is 186. So Yud Ke Vav Ke, the potential of infinite time, because it's beyond time, is expressed in the immediacy of space, of right now. It's the Yud that's expressed in the moment. So when he encounters the space, he's encountering the essence of space and the essence of time. And because of that, he's actually encountering the essence of himself. And that's why Yaakov in numeric value is also 186, with the 4 letters. Because what he does there, and that's what we can all do, is if you're encountering the essence of time and the essence of space, you're actually encountering the essence of yourself, which is the ayin beyond your yesh. My yesh, let's try to bring this down into a practical level. My yesh is that this is my narrative, this is my story. I was born at this time, these were my parents, this is my education, these are the people that I know, this is what I learned, this is what I feel, this is all my stuff. That's part of my yesh. It's part of my narrative, right? It's part of my narrative. And like we said before, you take responsibility and accountability because that's part of your yesh. That's the way Zman is connected with the name Ma'amban, which is the time flow where every single moment is real, and every single moment is connected to my past and my future, right? That was one level of time. Then we say there's something that's beyond time. There's something within me that transcends all time. That transcends all space, that transcends all consciousness. Infinity, Yud Ke Vav Ke. It is, it was, and it will be. It's infinite. It's beyond time, beyond space. Where do I connect to something within me and within creation that's beyond time, beyond space? Right now. Right here. At this very moment. B'Makom. In this immediate space, in this immediate time, and in this immediate encounter is where I can encounter the deepest level of the ayin, of the yud that's expressed in the haiva.
That's a contradiction because each one of those things here, this time, this place,
are
all
times.
Yesh.
That's all yesh.
So it's like through the yesh, you reach
that's why,
the
because that's great. The only place where the ayin is expressed is in the immediacy of the present, in the emergent presence, in the internal now. The moment I connect to the internal now as something that's part of the yesh, I'm leaving the ayin dimension of the yesh. But the moment let's try to understand this like practically, and then we'll maybe understand this more on a deeper level. If I'm let's say, eating food, for example, and I'm really enjoying it. It's not really something that I do so much, but let's say. And why? Because I like this food, and this is the story, and this is my narrative. This is my yesh narrative. Then I'm connected to the yesh of time, to the yesh of reality, right? In the yesh of reality, there is the ayin, the infinity, or the emptiness that gives rise to that particular encounter that I'm having now with this food. If I just am connected with the food of the reality, and I'm not going deeper, then I'm just cutting, so I'm living for the now, but I'm not getting to the core of the ayin. But if a person, let's say, makes a blessing, for example, or and goes deeper into the depth of what am I experiencing when I'm eating food, I'm tasting the divine deliciousness of creation, which is that the emergence of the ayin into this yesh at this present moment, then there's an explosion of all tastes. And there's a complete connection with something that's beyond and paradoxically fully present in that moment. It's like Yaakov bumping into that space. That's why it says Vayifka b'makom. He doesn't. He bumps into the space. He hits the space and it breaks open. And when he breaks open the space, he encounters the essence of himself, the essence of time, and the essence of space, which the essence of self and the essence of time and the essence of space is actually the ayin of every single moment, which is giving rise to this whole yesh, that I'm Yaakov and these are my sheep and this is my parents and this is I'm coming to meet my brother. So it's only through almost being fully present in the yesh, but piercing paga. It's like you have to pierce through the yesh to get to the ayin, as opposed to detaching yourself from all form to be in the ayin. Because when you're detaching yourself from all from ayin, then you're not being in the yesh in the ayin that includes all the yesh. Is this clear at some level? If I'm in the ayin, in the infinite potential of the moment, that's empty of all form, then I'm not living my fullness of myself at this present moment. I'm actually the absence of all myself, because I'm not in my thoughts, I'm not in my feeling, I'm not in my expression. The goal, let's try to rephrase it maybe. The goal is not the loss of self. The goal is the eternity of self. Is the transparency of self. The end game is not to become nothing. It's to become nothing and something at the same time. And to become nothing and something at the same time is both to live in the present moment fully, in the present moment, and with the awareness of also the effects in the past and the future, and with the freedom of the easiness of the moment, because it's ayin that's just right now emerging as a new yesh. Is this somewhat clear? So I think
after reading your book.
Exactly. So you have to read the book a little further. But I think this is the point. What time is it, by the way?
8:41.
Okay. This is basically the point that we're trying to get to. That there is. Let's try to encapsulate this a little bit quicker. The most important moment of time is right now. That we have in the beginning. There's a little story over there. It doesn't bring on the full story, but there's actually it's brought down in the Tshuvas of the Radbaz, the Chacham Tzvi, and others argue. But there's an idea of, let's say, if a person. This is actually a real story. This happened in the 1500s. There was a person that was incarcerated. He was in prison, and he was told. He was a Jewish man, and he was told that he can practice his faith once a year. And he was debating what day should that be. Should it be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur? Which day should he choose? And he wasn't sure. So he asked the Radbaz, David Ben Zimmer, who's actually also was one of the teachers of the Ari. The Ari is the one that Ari lived in Egypt. And he asked him, what's the appropriate time to choose? And he said, right now. If they give you today, it's today. Because on a deep level, we only live in the present. This is where we live. And this is where we're supposed to be. Our attention and focus should be in the present moment and not escape to the past. And certainly not escape to the past in terms of regret and guilt. And even though you can argue that part of transformation involves charata, which is like regret technically, but ultimately charata has to do with Kabbalah, which is acceptance. Kabbalah means I accept. It's similar to what we spoke about, pachad, fear. Fear is not a negative thing, is a negative thing only when it's about the future, and and there's no control about the future. Most people have fears because they fear something that's going to happen in the future, and they have zero control over it. Let's say a person has a fear of, I don't know, let's say fear of flying, I don't know what it's called, because the plane can, fall down. You have zero control over it. That's negative fear because you just created this fantasy in your mind, this imagination. You just created a scenario, and the worst possible scenario, and then you live with this fear, and it grips you, and it holds you back from living. But then there's a type of fear where it's immediate. You see a fire, you see water. It's a call for action in the present moment. So when we think about being in the present, everything about if there's any form of regret should not be, I should have done this yesterday. I should have really done this. I should have really, if I would have only did this, my life would look differently. If I would only met this person and done this thing, and if I would have been married then, etc., etc. A person has a whole list of things of if and I would have and I should have done these things. This is all total heresy, which means that it's exactly the way it should be right now. And the choices that you made yesterday were the choices what you did with your own fear consciousness and the awareness that you had yesterday. Today, of course, your awareness is differently. Therefore, you think about the choices that you did yesterday. That's silly. But that's because you're a different person today than yesterday. Therefore, you're making different choices. So anything that happened in the past is meant to be, and therefore that's the acceptance of the past. And the regret, if there's any regret about the past, it's only to affect a choice that you're going to make in the present. So you say, I'm going to learn from my past, even though it was meant to be, but now I have a new skill sets and I have a new potential to make new choices. So in the present moment, I'm making new choices. So it's not regret about the past for the past's sake, because that's its guilt and that's just negativity. It doesn't get anyone anywhere. But it's only the effect of what was my choices yesterday. What could I learn from those choices? How do I make choices in the present moment? And it's always about the present, because that's the place where we live and that's where life is lived. In this present moment, what are my choices going to be? I can learn from my past and I can anticipate my future, and therefore I can make choices. But the choices are happening in the present, and that is the most important place to settle our consciousness and to settle our mind. In being in the present moment, we said there are different dimensions of this idea of being in the present moment. In the yesh of the present moment, let's just simplify, in the yesh of the present moment, there's a clear sequence from past to present to future. And in that, we take responsibility. Like we said, a person steps on someone's foot, you say, I'm sorry, even though it just happened a moment ago, and that moment doesn't exist anymore. But I am looking at it as a continuation from my past to my present into the future. That's the level of zman, of time, which is connected to the shem ma'am ban, the lower forms of the yud kei vav kei. Then there's the infinite potential of yud kei vav kei, which is infinity, which is the ayin of the present moment, which has no form, which is not connected to any narrative, to any story, to any past, and for that matter, to any future. It's right now giving rise to a new present. Not the thought in the present moment, not my feeling in the present moment, just being in the present moment. Empty of all form, of all connections and all attachments. That allows me the freedom to make a new choice in this present moment. It's an ayin. It's a pure potential moment. In this pure potential moment, I can do and change my life in any direction I wish. because I'm completely unattached to what happened in the past. This is the way I lived my life yesterday. Today I'm going to live my life completely different. I have the freedom because every single moment is new and it's an ayin moment. It's free from any attachments to any yesh, to any existence, to any past, and to any future. That's the freedom that allows me to choose this present moment. Right? So the yesh is the accountability, and the ayin is the freedom to choose in this present moment. And then we said from the deepest perspective is that if we really want to connect with the ayin of the moment, then we said that's the yud of the haiva. The infinity, the yud ke vav ke in the haiva, in the present moment, is through the form. Through the form, the deeper we get into form, it's not to neglect the form. We're not supposed to live with like, I don't eat and I don't sleep and I don't participate in life because I just want to be in the ayin and the formless. Which is, there is a point of being there. Right? Just like there's a point of being in the yesh, there's a point of being in the ayin. And then there's a third point where in the yesh and the ayin simultaneously. Where I'm living fully but never getting caught up in the drama of the present moment. I'm living fully with like this certain level of, phrase it like the Kotzker said. Kotzker says if you really want to live fully in this world, you have to stand one step above it. That's the best way to phrase it. In other words, you're fully present and yet one level detached. You have yesh fully and ayin fully. When you're yesh fully and ayin fully, you can fully enjoy and participate fully in life and yet just as easily slip out of it because you're not attached to it. You're connected, maybe that's a better word. You're connected to it, you're involved in it, but you're not forced, you're not chained to it. You're coming from the ayin, from the freedom, from this openness of being in this present moment to choose to enjoy a conversation with somebody else. And sometimes we're just aware of that afterwards, like Yaakov when he wakes up in the morning. This is basically some of the things that we talked about. And we're going to take a few questions. So I'm supposed to read some of the Hebrew here, but we'll have to leave it for next time. Everything that we said is based on the Holy Book, so we'll open up for questions. Jeff, so what do you want to do? You want to take people from here or from?
Why don't we take some questions from the room, and then
Okay.
if there are questions online, we'll do that as well.
Excellent idea.
Why don't we stop the?
We can definitely do that.
Great.
How do we do that? Okay.
Great. Thanks.
And like we said in the beginning of this whole conversation, that if you don't have any questions, that's a sign that yeah.
Can you say more about Vayikra?
Yeah.
Like what, that doesn't mean he bumped into the place, like what is that style, how he planned it?
Yeah, so we're trying to say that the Vayifka is almost, where it talks about Yaakov, Vayifka ba'makom. So, Paga means like he bumped into it. He was like unexpectedly bumped into it. He bumped into space. And our sages say that Ein Paga ela tefillah. The Paga is actually a form of prayer. And what's prayer? Prayer is tefillah is a form of self-evaluation. Hispalalis, to like self-judge, to understand oneself, to go deeper. But the idea of the Paga is that we're trying to say that sometimes it's not so much a conscious choice to some of the real, I think maybe it goes back to the idea of the shofar. Sometimes the real, sometimes very genuine encounters that we have is not the mind doesn't create the narrative to create the encounter. Let's say, okay, I'm going to go out and speak to this person. I have this whole narrative in my mind, and this is going to be a very good encounter with this person. The problem with doing that, I mean, of course you have to do that. I'm saying the problem with doing that is that when you're having this encounter, let's say you're going on a date, whatever you're doing, you have this whole narrative in your mind that plays itself out even before you met the person, and while you're meeting the person, you're trying to see, is this aligned with the whole fantasy that I had in my mind, and therefore you're never present with the person. So sometimes real encounters happen by paga. It just, you bumped into the person, and there was no anticipation, there was no prior narratives and illusions or stories that you created, and it just happened. And maybe that's what the Torah is telling us by Yaakov. He was going one place, but Vayifka Makam, that's where he had the highest encounter with himself, with the essence of space and the essence of time. It's just like, it was just raw, and it was just present. Yeah.
If the shofar is a way of redirecting oneself or reawakening,
Yeah.
why is it so limited in its use throughout the year? Why don't we use it all the time?
That's a very, very good question. But the answer to the question is similar to a siren. Yeah. If a siren, let's say a police siren, if a police siren is meant, the reason why people put, I'm assuming that the reason why the siren is on is to show that there's a police presence in this place. If the siren would be on the whole time, it would lose you become desensitized to it. The sound of the shofar has to be something that is you don't hear.
It would be the new state of silence.
Exactly. It has to be something that awakens you and saying like, whoa, what was that? What was that sound? That's the sound. The sound is it jerks you out of your complacency, and it forces you to think about something else. But if it's something that's continuous, as you're always hearing it, okay, that becomes the background noise of.
Maybe a little more intermittent, not it doesn't have to be all the time.
You know what? The cry of the shofar is also it's the individual cry. You know, there's a teaching that speaks about the sound of the great shofar. That we speak about always about you talk about shofar, God will be the sound of the great shofar. What is actually the sound of the great shofar? What's this great messianic shofar? The sound of the great shofar is the sound of the collective cries of humanity throughout history. So really, every person is blowing their little shofar. Once in a year, we just have a personification of this. We actually spoke about this also, that the holidays, the Yom Tovim of the year, they're points throughout the year that are supposed to manifest predominantly during this period of year, but there's actually a trace of this energy throughout the entire year. Rosh Hashanah is every single day of the year is Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, every single day is Yom Kippur. Once a year is a personification of all the Yom Kippurs of the year becomes this one day Yom Kippur. But a person has to have a little bit of Yom Kippur every day and a little bit of Purim every day. Every person has to have all these, a little bit of Shabbos, a little bit of every single day of the week, yeah?
I didn't mean
Yeah, go ahead.
do some of the mitzvot get us more in touch with the yesh reality versus the ayin reality, or is it bringing all of it to the forefront each time we observe one of the mitzvot?
The general structure of the mitzvah is very yesh, and but the intention of the mitzvah is very ayin. So when you do the kavanah of the mitzvah is the ayin, that you're connecting to something that's transcendent, but the actual fulfillment of the mitzvah is very much involved in the yesh experience, and it's really about the yesh and the ayin. There's no mitzvah to be silent, there's no ayin. There's no mitzvah to indulge in food. If there's a mitzvah to indulge in food, is with a blessing. So you're doing ayin and yesh always together. Of course, there's some mitzvahs that have much more yesh, like things that involve very tangible versus things that are intangible, that are more ayin. But it's always about the balance between the yesh and the ayin.
Thank you.
Playing music is always like that. You always have both when you play. I mean,
Yeah.
the best musicians really do it well, but I mean.
Correct. That is correct. Yeah. Jeff, yeah.
Sorry, but you just said that in every day we have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah
Yeah.
and Shabbat.
Yeah.
But then in every moment we have a little bit of everything too.
Correct. That's correct.
Every single moment there is.
Of course. Of course, it's a holographic image. Every moment has everything else. Yeah.
Do best musicians live for the now or in the now?
I think in the now. I think for the now is this what's the right word for it? Indulgence. What's it called? There's a word for this. Gluttony, or this is it's not a real thing. Hedonistic. I think a lot of people mistake these two words, and therefore the people. I don't want to talk about people, but I'm assuming there are people in this world that mistake these two words, and therefore they feel like, okay, I'm a very evolved person. I'm totally in the present. But no, you're just for the now and completely not responsible for your past and future. The yud is the hoiva that includes all the present, past, and future. That's the ultimate ayin of yesh.
We don't have any questions from
Okay.
from
Perfect.
online, so if there are any other questions.
I think we have to tell over the story what happened that we said before about the chayza. That the Chayza Lublin, this great Hasidic master, was once walking down the street. I'm telling you the exact same story I said in the beginning, but he was walking in the street and he saw a few older people playing checkers. So he turned to his disciples and said, "These people are no longer alive." So a few moments later, his disciple walks over to the Rebbe and says, "Rebbe, why did you say these people are no longer alive?" He says, "Because they stopped asking questions." So a few moments later, the disciple turns to the Rebbe and says, "Hey, Rebbe, am I alive?" He says, "You just asked the question." So long as you ask a question, you're alive. The moment you just stop asking, you have to check yourself. So we should never stop asking questions and always grow.
So there is one comment that
Yeah.
someone from the room wrote. Some movies are a form of yesh. If a person has Alzheimer's and cannot remember that past, how does that relate to time? Not sure I fully.
Even a person that has Alzheimer's that doesn't remember his past, doesn't remember fully their past. But most people don't remember fully their past. You know, what do you remember from your past? You remember small amounts of the past. It's just a certain connection to a certain narrative. Of course, a person that's completely lost their mind is actually slipping into ayin. That's clear. The person's letting go of their yesh, their narrative, and slipping into a state of ayin. That's a person that has no memory of anything. But I don't think that happens. They have memory of their youth or memory of their childhood. Maybe they don't remember who you are and things, but they have some memory of something. There's some yesh still connected.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, or?
I think, yeah, sure.
It says in Chumash,
Yeah.
when Moshe Rabbeinu asked to see Hashem's face, that you can't see my face and live.
Right.
Rather, I'll show you
My back.
my back.
Yeah.
And it seems like this parallels these concepts that really the inward level of Yudke, Yudke, like the higher level of ayin that's all encompassing both, like all the time.
Yeah.
That's not something that's really graspable. Like it's something that we have through like this interface of these
That's
constricted times.
correct. That's
But
what
it's like more like an imprint. It's like this is the residual effect of the
to be conscious of it, to be aware of it. Hashem's saying, "Lo yirani adam v'chai," you cannot live and see me because you're me. You can't be outside of me and see me if I'm everything.
right.
So you can't
We
become.
lose our own existence as a separate.
It's paradoxical because you can't see your eyes looking at itself because you are your eyes. If you are one with me, then you're not outside of me and seeing me. When you die, which means when you become ayin, you become aware of the one, then you're with me. So you cannot, that's what we're saying. If to be in the ayin moment, you cannot grasp it. You cannot contextualize it. You cannot think it. You can only be it. You can't see it, you are it. The ayin is it.
But that level isn't even at the level of our choices. That just always is.
That is, that's correct.
We already are.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's not even like we have to arrive.
That's
to
correct.
Where we are.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's,
But we're trying to
So-
we're trying to get we're trying to get the residual of the ayin. The residual of the ayin is the way we're going to appreciate or become conscious or aware of the present moment as a new moment. That's the ayin to us. It's ultimately, it's not the ayin itself. We can only be the ayin. You can't observe the ayin. But if we have a little observation of it or understanding of it, it allows us to free ourselves in this present moment. So you're not observing it. You're taking the awareness of that reality and saying, how is it going to affect my present life? And the way it's going to affect my present life is that I actually have the choice in this present moment to recreate myself from new at any time. That's the effects of the ayin in the present moment. But you're right, you cannot become aware of it. You are it at all times. And I think that's what the Torah is saying, actually, that you're going to see the effects of it. You can see the backside. The backside is like the effect. It's when it's moved aside. That's what we said, that Yaakov is not aware that he's in that space until the next morning. The next morning he says, indeed Hashem was in this place and I did not know. Now I know what I experienced yesterday. But when I experienced it yesterday, I didn't know, because you can't know. Because if you know, then you're separate from the experience.
Was he
Yes.
still experiencing it still while he had
No.
the realization?
No.
It was just
His achen, yesh l'kim bakum zev aneichel edait. Indeed, this was this place. I did not know.
Okay, wow.
Right? So it's like the effect. It's the backside of the experience.
It's like being in the zone or out of your,
Yeah, that's correct.
out of your body almost.
Correct. Correct. It is like being in the zone, whatever you want. That's the way of phrasing it. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi Pinson.
Thank you. Shkach, shkach.